let me ask you a question. I want you to think just for a moment about this. What is the most important thing in the whole world to you? What's the most important thing in the whole world to you? Have a think just for a moment. I wonder what you thought. Maybe it's your teddy bear. Not Luke's teddy bear. Big shake of the head there. Maybe it's your family. Picture of my family just there. Maybe if some of the adults were really honest, they might say money. I wonder, what's the most important thing in the world to you? Now, teddies and families and money are all wonderful, wonderful things because they can make us feel better. They can make us feel safe. They can even make us feel less worried. Do you know what? There will be times when your teddy and your money and your family won't be able to do what you want them to do. There will be times when teddy can't make you feel better, when your family can't be there to protect you, and when your money can't provide what you need. But here's the good news. The good news from our true story from the Bible that we're looking at today is there is something, or rather there is someone who can. I wonder if you can guess who his name is. It's a safe guess. Go on, Maddie, whose name do you think it is? God, brilliant. That is exactly right. It is Jesus Christ, God himself. Now, Jesus is not in our story today, but there's someone who's just like him, someone who shows us what he's like. He is King Melchizedek. Melchizedek shows us what it's like to have Jesus as our king. But he's not the only king in our story. There's another king, a man called the King of Sodom, and he shows us what it's like when something other than Jesus is in charge of us, just like a king is in charge. In a moment, we're going to meet Melchizedek and we're going to meet the King of Sodom. But there's one more person in our story today, and his name is Abram. And I wonder if you noticed at the start of our story, Abram's on his way back from a battle. He had just saved his nephew, Lot. Lot had been caught up in a fight and been carried away. And so Abram went to rescue Lot. And he fought off that mean king, Chedorlaomer. And when he did that, Lot was freed. And the king of Sodom and lots of other people didn't need to fight Chedorlaomer anymore because Abraham had beaten him. And so Abram's just had this big fight and he's coming back from the battle and he meets two people, Melchizedek and the king of Sodom. But before we meet them, I need to ask you guys a question. I've got a picture up on the screen behind me. What's going on in this picture? Amwen, what's going on in this picture? It's the tennis. That's right. Now, has anyone ever been to see the tennis? A few fans are going up. And I don't know if you know this, children, but if you're sitting in the middle of the tennis court, do you know what you spend all your time doing? Not quite catching the ball. What, Karis? Not getting the ball. No, you spend all your time doing this. You go, as you watch the ball go back and forward over the net. And I've showed you that picture because today's story from the Bible, it's a bit like a tennis match. So Abram, he's in the middle, and the two kings are on either side. Melchizedek's at this end, and the king of Sodom's at this end. And Abraham spends all his time going, looking at Melchizedek, looking at the king of Sodom, looking at Melchizedek, looking at the king of Sodom, back and forth, back and forth. But he's not trying to work out who's going to win the tennis match. He's trying to work out who's going to be his king. He's got to decide who he wants to be in charge of him. And as we look at Abram trying to work this out, we get to ask that same question. Who's going to be king in our lives? Is it going to be King Jesus, or is it going to be something else? Okay, let me read the first verse again. After defeating Kedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, Abram went home. As Abram was returning, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Sheba. That is now called the King's Valley. Oh, hello. I guess you're the king of Sodom. Okay. Here, can you hold that to me? I'm running out of hands. Okay. Now, we have already learned something about you, king of Sodom. You like fights, and you start fights all the time. Not good. Not good. There we go. You start fights. We're going to put it up on the board. This is like our scoreboard up here, okay? Let's keep reading. Then, verse 18, Melchizedek, king of Salem, also went out to meet Abram.
Melchizedek, catch. What?
You must be Melchizedek. He's the king of Sodom. Where are you the king of? Salem. What does Salem mean? Salem means peace. So that means you're the king of peace. The king who brings peace. Okay. The king who starts fights. The king who brings peace. Hey! Okay. That's the choice Abraham has. Does he want a king who starts fights or a king who brings peace? Now, I don't know what your houses are like, but sometimes in our house, we have problems because sometimes in our house, a toy can become the most important thing. And do you know what? When the toy becomes the most important thing, when that's like the king and it sort of rules over us because we really want it, do you know what happens? Can anyone guess what happens in our house? Go on, Luke. Fights. Lots of fights. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. Teddy, when he becomes king, is a bit like the king of Sodom, causes fights. But if someone else is our king, if Jesus is our king, and you know what, if we listen to what he says about loving other people, we're kind and we can share Teddy, and life is peaceful, like Melchizedek. King who brings conflict fights, a king who brings peace. But maybe you need a bit more persuading. So let's keep thinking about our kings. Okay. Now, king of Sodom, I want you to tell me why you started your fight.
Because he was in charge and I didn't like it. I wanted to be in charge.
Kedorlaomer was in charge and the king of Sodom wanted to be in charge. And in fact, that's what the adults were thinking about last week. I'm going to put the verse on the screen just so you know it came from the Bible. These kings, that is the king of Sodom and his friends, they'd served Kedorlaomer for 12 years, but in the 13th year, they all turned against him.
That's right. There was no way anyone else was going to be in charge of me.
Okay, the king of Sodom says, I'm in charge. What about King Melchizedek? If you are following along, have a look at verse 19. Let's see who he says is in charge. Melchizedek blessed Abram and said,
Abram, may God Most High give you blessings. God made heaven and earth, and we praise God Most High. He has helped you to defeat your enemies.
You see, King Melchizedek is a funny kind of king. Because he's a king who doesn't think he's in charge. Did you see what he said? He said, God made heaven and earth. And because he made it, he's in charge of it. He rules it. He even helped Abram defeat his enemies. Melchizedek says God's in charge. Melchizedek, if he had a crown, it would have looked like this crown. This is the crown who wore this crown last weekend? Go on, Ayla. King Charles III wore this crown. Now, does anyone know why King Charles's crown has got a cross right on the top? Does anyone know? Do you know, Barney? You knew last Sunday. Can you remember this Sunday? No, that's all right. It's a long time ago, last week. Harris, why has it got a cross all the way on top? Okay. Great. That was a brilliant answer. So Karis pointed out there's also that round bit which represents the earth. And then the cross is on top to show that Jesus is king over the whole earth. And it's on Charles's head to remind Charles that Jesus is the king of him too. And that's sort of crown Melchizedek would have had. So here's the question for Abram. Does he want to follow the king of Sodom, who says he's in charge? Or does he want to follow King Melchizedek, who says God's in charge? Ooh. That's right. Okay, I think our choice is getting clearer, but there are two more things we're going to see. Have a look at verse 18, and we're going to see what Melchizedek brought when he met Abram. Melchizedek, king of Salem, went to meet Abram. He was priest of God Most High. Melchizedek brought bread and wine. Now, in Abram's day, to have wine with your bread, that was a real treat. That was the sort of thing that only kings would have. So let me take that. But I wonder, would any of you guys down the front like a breadstick? I know how to make friends. Oh, hello, Zach. Brilliant work. Come on, Phoebe, come and get a breadstick. Can't miss out on the good stuff. Now, Melchizedek, do you know what he did? He came and he gave Abram the best. He gave him bread and wine. But here's the funny thing about Melchizedek giving Abram bread and wine. The place he was king of, Salem, wasn't one of the places that Kedorlaomer had been bossing around. Not one of the places that Abram saved when he defeated the mean king Kedorlaomer. Abram, he hasn't done anything to help Melchizedek. Melchizedek doesn't owe him anything. He gives Abram this amazing royal meal, nonetheless, and he asks for nothing in return. He doesn't ask for anything, but he gives freely. What about the king of Sodom? Now, Sodom was one of the places that Abram had rescued. Abram had really helped the king of Sodom by defeating the mean king Kedorlaomer. So if someone has helped you out, what do you think the king of Sodom should say to Abram? Go on, Amman. Okay. What else might he say, Ayla? Thank you, Amman. If someone really helps you, what might you say? This is reflecting really badly on our house, isn't it? What might you say if someone helps you, Ayla? Thank you. That's right. That's what big sisters are for, to remind you to say thank you. Okay. You'd expect the king of Sodom to say thank you. Let's see what he said. It's in verse 21, if you want to follow along. Then the king of Sodom said to Abram,
Give me the people, you can keep the goods.
You see, he should be saying thank you, but you know what he's saying? Give me more stuff. Give me more stuff. Give me the people. All he wants is his share of Abraham's plunder. Now, imagine there was a school football tournament or maybe a school netball tournament, and your class won. Your class won the prize. But then imagine someone in your class came up and they snatched the prize. Maybe it was a box of sweets. They snatched the box of sweets away. And they sort of looked through them and they ate all the ones that they liked and just left the bounties for the team who'd won. And they gave them the bounties and said, yeah, you can have them. Would that be or hooray? What do you think, guys? But that's exactly what the king of Sodom does. He gets Lot, he gets saved, but he wants more. So what do you think? Do you think Abram wants to follow, we're going to do it the other way this time, Melchizedek, who doesn't ask for anything but gives freely? Hey! Or do you think he wants to follow the king of Sodom, who gets Lot and asks for more? Well, do you know what? It's exactly the same when we follow King Jesus. He gives us things that we don't deserve. But when other things are in charge of us, like a king, do you know what they do? They just want more and more and more. They are so much of us. You guys are doing really well. We've done 3 out of 4. There's one more we're going to learn. Let's see what Abram said to the king of Sodom. Have a look at verse 22 if you're following along. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I made a promise to the Lord. He is the God Most High who made the heavens and the earth. I promised that I will not keep anything that is yours. I will not even keep a thread or a sandal strap. That way you cannot say, I made Abram rich. Now, this one's a bit trickier. Might have to think a bit about it. But can you see what Abram is worried about? He's worried that if he goes along with the king of Sodom's plan, that one day the king of Sodom will turn around and say, oh, I made Abram rich. I won the battle. He's nothing. He's only something because of me. But who won the battle? Was it, guys, have a think, was it Abram or was it the king of Sodom? Who can work that out? Go on, Luke. Abram, that's right. But the king of Sodom, he wants to twist things around and make it look like he's really good and Abram's really bad. Here's the grown-up word for it. He wants to manipulate Abram. But do you know what Melchizedek wanted to do for Abram? Have a look at verse 19. He blessed Abram. What did you want to do?
To bless him.
Thanks, Melchizedek. Here's the choice. Who do you think, guys, have a think, who do you think Abram should have as his king? Should it be this guy, the king of Sodom, who causes fights, who wants to be in charge, who gets lots and wants even more, and who wants to manipulate Abram? Or should it be Melchizedek, who brings peace, who knows God's in charge, who doesn't ask for anything but gives freely, and who wants to bless Abram? Yay. Let's see. Let's put it to a vote. We're a democracy here at church. Who would put hands up for Melchizedek? Yeah. Hands up for the king of Sodom. Sorry, Darren. And of course, we have a choice too, don't we? We have a choice too, not between Melchizedek and the king of Sodom, but our choice is whether we want Jesus to be king. Because he brings peace. He knows God's in charge. He doesn't ask us for anything, but he gives freely and he wants to bless us. And that's all the things we get when Jesus is king of our lives. But when we let other things like, I don't know, money be king of our lives, or the toys that we fight over, that just causes more and more squabbles in it. And it rules over us. It sort of wants to be in charge over us. It keeps taking more and more. It manipulates us. That's the choice we have to make. Have a think just for a moment. In fact, before we do that, why don't we say thank you to Melchizedek and the king of Sodom. And I'd say go and sit down, have a think. Who do you want to be king over you? And then I'm going to say a prayer. Dear God, thank you for King Jesus. Thank you that he brings peace, that he knows you're in charge and that that's a really good thing. And that he doesn't ask us for anything, but he just gives and gives and gives so freely. And he wants to bless us. Dear God, thank you for this story in the Bible that tells us about Melchizedek and the king of Sodom, but really tells us what it's like to have Jesus as our King. Please help us to want to have him as our King, we pray. Amen.